Hi everyone, this is Eric Bond, the founder of Beat the GMAT, and welcome to another great webinar this evening. Today's session is called 5 Actions to Take Now Before Applying This Fall. So if you're at the session today as a participant, good for you. This is a perfect time to be taking a webinar like this to plan out the remainder of your admissions season. And for this session today, I'm thrilled to be joined by the good folks at Stratus Prep and Shawn O'Connor, who is the founder of Stratus Prep. Just a couple of words about the Stratus Prep organization as well as Shawn. So Stratus Prep is an internationally recognized leader in law, business, and graduate school test prep and admissions consulting. They focus on an elite set of clients' journeys and success stories to help them through test prep as well as the admissions process. I highly recommend that after this session you go to stratusprep.com. Lots of great information there to help you. And a little bit about Shawn as well. So Shawn, as I mentioned, is the founder and president of Stratus Prep. He has many years of experience teaching standardized test prep in both law as well as business school, as well as coaching countless hundreds of applicants in law school and business school admissions. So when you talk about someone that has a very intimidating pedigree, you can include Shawn in that category. He received both his MBA with highest honors from Harvard Business School as well as his Juris Doctorate, his law degree, cum laude from Harvard Law School. So this is a person who is intimately knowledgeable about what it takes to get into arguably the two hardest higher education institutes in the world. And fortunately, Shawn has a lot of passion in sharing his knowledge with the rest of us, as we're going to find out in the rest of this presentation today. And prior to Stratus Prep, prior to him actually founding this company, Shawn has experience working at McKinsey, Lehman Brothers, Mercer Management Consulting, a top law firm. So a variety of great industries as well as roles. Shawn, thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to today's webinar.
Eric, thank you so much for the introduction, and it's great to be here with the Beat the GMAT community. And I'm happy to present 5 actions to take now before applying in the fall. So just to sort of build a bit on Eric's introduction, we'll start here with the first slide. So as Eric said, I am the founder and president of Stratus Prep, and I did do both my law degree and my MBA at Harvard. Before that, I did my undergraduate degree at Georgetown, where I graduated summa cum laude. And I formerly worked with McKinsey and Lehman and a number of other top firms. I also write the Forbes column, The Launching Pad, about how to find academic and professional success in the new economy. I also wanted to introduce you to Vani Krishnamurthy, another of our key team members. Vani couldn't join us this evening, but she is Stratus Prep's MBA Admissions Director. She also has her MBA from Harvard, and she is a Fulbright Scholar to India. She was a magna cum laude graduate of Penn and has worked previously with Bain and the Boston Consulting Group. Vani's profile gives you a sense of the type of consultants and counselors that we have on the Stratus Prep team, all of whom have MBAs from top 5 American business schools, and all of whom also have significant admissions experience, whether that's serving as an admissions office staff member, an admissions reader, an admissions interview, or an admissions counselor with many years of successful track record at getting folks into the very best schools, from Harvard to Stanford to Wharton. So that is our team. And then you may have seen us. We've been in a number of top publications. In addition to Forbes, we've been in Bloomberg Business Week. I recently had an article in the Financial Times, Fortune, CNN, U.S. News. We were also recently in the Wall Street Journal. Okay, so our 5 actions to take now in order to get ready for success this fall in the very competitive MBA application season. So we're going to go through, I'll just do a brief summary of the 5 tips first, and then we're going to delve deep onto each of these. And then we'll be happy to leave about 15 or 20 minutes at the end to take all of your questions, which I'm excited to share. So first, we need to register for the GMAT, and we need to find a qualified tutor to help you prepare. Now, some of you may want to do self-preparation. Some of you may want to use a tutor. Some of you may want to do a class. So we'll talk about those different options, all of which can work for different folks who are in different situations. But that is our first tip. And then we're going to get into developing your distinctive admissions strategy and what you need to be thinking through before you just start drafting those essays. Then we'll talk about contacting potential recommenders and how you should go about that process and when is the right time to contact them because it is rapidly approaching. Then we'll talk about how do you finalize school selection so you know which essays you're going to have to write and when your deadlines will be. So we'll talk a bit about how to complete school selection and then how to embark on that daunting essay writing process in order to make the deadlines. And I should mention that, you know, when it comes to deadlines, and I think this is a good time to think through this now that we're 2.5 months out, you really, really want to try to get all of your applications in 2 weeks before the deadline. When we are working with our applicants here at Stratus Prep, we are always getting done about 2 weeks before the deadline so that there's plenty of time to do one final review and to get your application in before the mad rush. It definitely makes you a much more appealing applicant who looks like they had everything together and were on top of their schedule. And then finally, we'll talk about reviewing your resume to see if you have any gaps that you could fill in the next few months. A lot of times people think it's too late, but it is absolutely not too late. And I'll give you some really strategic tips on what you can do to fill in those gaps that may exist in your resume. So let's get started with tip number 1. So with taking the GMAT, one of the most frequent questions I have at this point in the year, or even sometimes a little earlier in the year, is, Shawn, I'm confused. Do I take the GMAT? Do I take the GRE? Which do schools prefer? Which is harder? Which is easier? So more and more schools do accept both the GMAT and the GRE for admissions to MBA programs, but there are still a few which only accept the GMAT. So the first thing you have to do before making this decision is you have to go through and evaluate all the potential schools, because if even 1 or 2 of your potential schools only takes the GMAT, then you absolutely need to be taking the GMAT. And then secondly, if you are going to be applying to other graduate programs, maybe you're doing a master's in public policy or a master's in public administration, and those require you to take the GRE, then that's likely the better exam for you. But if you have a choice between the two and you can absolutely choose, we do prefer that our applicants take the GMAT. And the reason for that is the schools know that the GRE math is a bit easier, so they discount that. So particularly if you're strong in the quantitative section, it is better to take the GMAT and demonstrate strong quantitative ability on the GMAT rather than the GRE. All right, next step would be to take a diagnostic. Okay, we need to understand your areas of weakness on the test so that then you are going to be able to really work and focus in on your areas of weakness. These are very broad tests, whether you're taking the GMAT or the GRE. And so it is critically important that you that you are looking at just the sections that you are struggling with. So maybe it's the math, maybe it's not just the math, but maybe it's just the problem solving within the quantitative section. So then that's really where you need to spend a lot of time. Maybe on the flip side, it's the verbal and it's only sentence correction, or it's sentence correction and reading comp. And so you really want to diagnose what your areas of weakness are. What do you need to do? What do you need to work on to get to that score that you're looking for? And for those top scores, I'm always looking for 2 things from my applicants. I want to see over 700 on the overall score. I don't really care if it's 700, 720, 750. Obviously, 720 or 750 is stronger. But if it's 700 and over 80th percentile on the math, then I think we can move forward at the top schools. Obviously, the better the score, the better. But don't get completely freaked out if you're not able to hit the 750 mark. A lot of very top schools are very open to applicants with a 700, but they like to see that quant as close to the 80th percentile as possible. Then you want to look at your target schools, and you'll see the different averages at your top choice schools, and that will help you decide, okay, how much more work do I need to do? And at this point in the process, you are probably going to have to parallel both preparing for the GMAT and preparing your applications, particularly if you want to apply in round 1, which is my strong recommendation. We have always seen a higher success rate at all the top schools, Harvard, Wharton, Stanford, from applicants who apply in round 1. So, if you're aiming for round 1 and you haven't yet completed the GMAT or the GRE, it is essential that you figure out what score you need to get to and that you work towards that score while simultaneously work on the applications. Then you have to decide what method of preparation is best for you. And I'm so thrilled that Beat the GMAT offers so many incredible self-study tools and schedules, and for many students that can be incredibly valuable. But some students obviously need a little bit more support, and they can either employ a tutor or they can work with a class. And we often find for our students that the combination of tutoring and self-study may be the most effective. For some folks, a class is obviously a great fit. But for some folks, working with a tutor can be better because then you don't spend time on areas of the exam in which you're already strong, but instead you get to work with a tutor. And, Stratus Prep does offer GMAT tutoring all around the world. You can work with a tutor who is a true expert in your area, who has scored 760, 770, 780, and can really help you focus on your specific areas of concern. All right, so we've got to prepare for the standardized test, make sure that we've got that well underway. Even if you're doing round 2, obviously you need to be pushing forward with this, but that is something that you need to get on immediately. Okay, so step 2, developing your distinctive admission strategy. This is one of the biggest mistakes that we see applicants make when they come to us for reapplications. They didn't get in, they didn't work with a consultant the prior year, maybe they worked with a different consultant, and they come to us and they say, Shawn, I had the numbers, but I didn't get in, I don't understand. And it's so important to understand that one of the top, if not the top, components of your application is going to be your application and the essays that you put together. And so we need to make sure that you develop a really coherent, a really tight admission strategy that is going to best position you for success. So we really see 3 components as being absolutely essential to your admission strategy, and you need to nail these down and really understand them and think through them before you should start drafting essays, because as we've all learned from our business experience in the past, it's so important to be strategic first and define your goals and generally how you want to get to your goals, and then begin to work on specific tactics to get to realize those goals. And so the strategy is sort of addressing these 3 areas, whereas the tactics that come later will be the essays, will be the recommendations. You really need to create a coherent whole where all of the different pieces of the application are telling the same story so that they will fully resonate with the admissions committees. So when it comes to crafting a unique and thorough personal story, the question becomes, who are you personally, professionally, and academically? And this is something that's so important. You must convey who you are personally. And at schools like HBS and Stanford, this is even that much more important. They want to gain a sense of an understanding of where are you from, where did you grow up, what has most influenced you, how have you developed as a leader. One of the parts of one of my essays to HBS was about skiing. And skiing's always been a passion and a hobby of me and something that's taught me a great deal. So you want to take some risks and convey who you are personally, because if you don't do that, your application can feel really flat. One of the biggest mistakes you can make is just have every answer to every essay be professional. Next, who are you professionally? What choices have you made? Why did you land in the job that you're in now? What makes you passionate about that work? If you've made career transitions in the past, why have you made those transitions? And then who are you academically? Where did you go to undergrad? Have you done other graduate work? What is inspiring you to pursue an MBA? Then what drives you in your career ambitions? Schools really want to see applicants who are going to change the world. And so they want to know what are your career ambitions, but what pushes you, what motivates you to pursue those career ambitions? And then next, why are you different from everyone else that's applying? And this is so critically important. You're not really competing against 10,000 people if you apply to Harvard. You're competing with a few hundred people who have very similar profiles to yourself. And so what we are constantly working with our applicants here at Stratus Prep to do is how are we going to differentiate you from the other investment bankers or from the other folks based in India who are applying to Harvard? How are we going to differentiate you, from other folks who've headed up the women's network at your firm, or other management consultants? So we really need to look at in all of the different groups and all of the different professional organizations that you fall within, how can we differentiate you? Because they're only going to take so many students from Google, and they're only going to take so many students from Facebook, and so many from Goldman, and so many from McKinsey. And they're only going to take so many students from each part of the world, and you want to be one of those students, and you really need to think through, how am I going to differentiate myself? And often this is one of the greatest values that clients find in working with us, our ability to really benchmark them against other applicants who are very similar. Next, what makes you a good colleague? You're going to spend the next 21 months in class with professors and administrators and students from this school. And the school really wants to understand, how are you going to contribute to our community? Why would you make a good classmate and a good colleague? So you really want to think about examples that can illustrate that. And then how are you going to change the world for the better? As I talked about, that should be quintessential to your career ambitions. Now, that does not mean that you have to do nonprofit work, certainly. You can change the world. I mean, Apple, for example, has changed the world positively for millions upon millions of people, and at the same time been incredibly profitable. So, but you do need to have a bold career ambition. Next, why do you want to go to business school? So this gets us into the section of what is your specific and logical reason to need to get an MBA in the next year. Because if I cannot convince the admissions committee that I need to get an MBA this year, I'm not going to be in their class next year. So why do you want to go to business school? What is missing from your skill set that you hope to develop in business school? And why is it imperative for your career ambitions that you have to go next year? Why is a particular program that you're applying to, whether that's Harvard or Columbia or Wharton or Stanford or Duke or Michigan, why are these programs the ideal place for you to receive an MBA? In terms of specialization, in terms of location, in terms of the type of community. They really want to accept students who demonstrate that their life will be incredibly enriched by being a member of this community, and that they will also incredibly enrich the community itself. Next, what are your vital stats? What's your GMAT score? Okay, what is your college GPA? The higher ranked schools, especially Harvard and Stanford, they care a lot about college GPA. And so that's something to be really, really cognizant of. If your GMAT or your GPA are low, is there a good reason for that? Okay, were you sick during college? Was there a family crisis? Was there a financial situation that came up? If you've taken the GMAT multiple times, what happened that resulted in your needing to take it multiple times? So we really want to use the places that are available in the applications to address the GMAT score and the GPA. I don't want you to write a whole essay about the GPA. We need to come from a positive place with the essays, but the GPA and GMAT does need to be explained if it's lower than the school is looking for. Next, how many years of experience do you have, and have you been promoted? This is also really important. You know, you don't. A lot of folks are making the mistake. I was just meeting with a couple of new clients today, and they're saying, you know, I only have 2 years of experience. Is that enough? Absolutely, 2 years of experience is enough. 2 years is enough. 3 years is enough. 4 years is enough. 2 to 4 years right now is the sweet spot. Okay, yes, at certain schools, the average age is a little bit over that, but that is the sweet spot. That is where you are most competitive, between sort of 2 and 4, maybe 5 years. But there's a lot more risk to applying too late than there is to applying too early. So we like to see students, if they've been there 2 years, if they've been promoted once, you are ready to go. Particularly at certain schools like Harvard, they are really excited to get young, new talent that is doing well in their job, that is having impact in the world, and that is ready to embark on a Harvard MBA application to make that next step. Okay, great. So now we have to talk a little bit about contacting your potential recommenders. And I don't necessarily want you immediately running out to the recommenders tomorrow, but this is something that now is the time to begin thinking about. So first, in general, sooner is better. However, it is absolutely imperative that if you are going to be going out to your recommenders, that you not do that until you have developed your admission strategy. So for example, if you're going to work with an admissions counselor, like my colleagues and I at Stratus Prep, then you really, really want to think about, okay, I need to develop my admission strategy. I'm going to want my admissions counselors to help me with that. So let me find out first what my best, most successful admissions strategy is going to be by working collectively and collaboratively with my admissions counseling team, and then we can go ahead and go out and contact the potential recommenders. But you don't want to do that until you have a clear admissions strategy, because what you want is you want the recommenders to prepare recommendations that are going to directly support your strategy. Okay, so you don't want them just to write, John is the best analyst I've ever had, and, platitudes like that. You want them to use specific examples to show how you are going to really achieve everything that you have set your mind to, how you are poised to make the kind of impact that you're talking about in those essays. And so everything needs to be weaved together super tightly. And so after you've developed your admission strategy, then you contact the recommenders. And when folks are working with Stratus Prep, we have templates for how to contact the recommenders and what type of information you need to give the recommenders. We also coach you on how to coach the recommenders. If the recommenders would benefit from speaking with us, we're happy to speak with them personally. So after you've developed your admission strategy, then go out to the recommenders. The first recommenders you want to go out to are bosses from the past that you may not be in as regular contact with, or if you're going to be using college professors, which is something we can talk about, then college professors who maybe you haven't been in touch with. Often they may be away for part of the summer, so you want to give them plenty of time to get back to you, to get reacquainted. Your current boss you may want to hold off on, actually, because you may not want to reveal to them yet that you're going to be applying for an MBA. But your college professors or previous employers, it's important to give them enough time. Recognize that they probably have a lot of demands on their time, a lot of folks who are asking them for recommendations. And if you can be earlier in that pile, you're much more likely to get the kind of stellar, well-written recommendation that is supplemented with specific examples that are really meaningful to the admissions committee. So we really think that sooner is better once you've crafted that admissions strategy. Next, it is important to choose your recommenders really wisely. If I had to name the top 3 reasons people do not get into business school, it wouldn't be GPA or GMAT. It would be your work experience, it would be the essays that you write, and it would be the recommenders that you choose and how you coach them. The GPA and the GMAT are extremely important. But as we'll see, those are hurdles that can be overcome. We've had people with as low as a 590 on the GMAT admitted to Harvard. So you can overcome these challenges. But if you have a lukewarm recommendation, it doesn't have to be bad. But if it's not stellar, there's no way you're getting into a top 10 school. So choose recommenders who are intimately familiar with your biggest accomplishments and your strengths at your job. Also make sure that they enjoy working with you, that you have a close relationship as individuals as well as colleagues or supervisor and subordinate. You also want to take into account the personality and the writing style of the recommender. If this is an individual whose personality really shifts from up and down and up and down, and you don't know exactly who you're going to get on the day that they're writing the recommendation, then that may not be the best person to write for you. Schools do generally want to see a direct supervisor. However, sometimes that's not possible or it's not in your best interest, and then you should not do that. And we will be happy to work with you to come up with who that person should be instead of the direct supervisor. Next, you should have a couple of backups. Sometimes recommenders aren't available to complete the recommendation. They don't have the time. Or you've asked them to complete it a few weeks beforehand, and they're showing no sign of getting it done, and you want to make sure you don't miss the deadline, because if your recommenders are late at many schools, then you are moved to the next round, even if you submitted your portions on time. So you may want to just begin the process of rebuilding or building relationships with these backup recommenders so that you have them at the ready should you need them. Also, many of our applicants are applying to 4 or 5 schools to really make sure that they are maximizing their chances of admission to the school of their choice. If they're doing that, they may not be able to ask some recommenders to write 5 different recommendations because, as you may know, for business school, they send the recommenders an online form that sometimes is a couple thousand words that needs to be completed. As a result of that, you may need to use some of these backups for your less important schools because you need to spread the burden that comes from asking the same person to write 5 or 6 recommendations. So that can be another important way in which these backup recommenders can contribute to your success. All right, now let's talk a little bit about school selection and essay writing, 2 critical topics at this point in the admission season. In terms of school selection, there are a number of different issues that you should be taking into account. First, ranking, and ranking is important to all of us. But how important is the brand name of a school to you? Some clients that I work with, it's all about brand, and they're going to go to Harvard or Stanford, or they're not going to go at all. And I think that that can be, a reasonable position if brand is extraordinarily important to you. But other applicants understand that maybe they won't be quite as competitive as at Harvard and Stanford, but they still know that there is tremendous value, and there definitely is, at any top 10 to top 15 business school in the U.S. or Europe. There is tremendous value in that. And so how important will the rank of your school be to your future employers in your chosen field? If you're going to be going into entrepreneurship or doing a startup, it may be more important just to get that top 10 MBA, but so that you have validation when you go out to funders and to VCs, but it may not make a huge difference to them whether you went to Michigan or Harvard. Whereas if you want to go into private equity or hedge funds where there are very limited options at the moment, ranking may be more important to you. If you're going to be going overseas, it may be really important to you how well known the brand is abroad. So, Harvard is particularly well known abroad. Columbia is particularly well known abroad. Kellogg is particularly well known abroad. Stanford is obviously well known abroad. And so that may be something that we need to take into consideration in selecting your schools. Next, school selection really needs to come in tandem with developing your admission strategies. So when you're working with Stratus Prep, at the same time that we're helping you really define your career goals, we're also helping you to decide exactly what schools you should apply to. When folks sign up with us, they sign up for a number of schools. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 schools. And they don't have that list completely done. They know they want to apply to Harvard and they want to apply to Wharton, but they're not sure. We work with them as we're defining their career goals to help them figure out which schools it makes sense for them to apply to. And so you have to look at what fields are you going to go into. Are you going to go into finance or marketing or entrepreneurship? Are you interested in people leadership? Are you interested in the nonprofit or social enterprise sectors? And then does this match the school's area of expertise? If you want to go into social entrepreneurship, you may want to seriously consider schools like Columbia and Duke, which have excellent programs in entrepreneurship and specifically social entrepreneurship. Okay, obviously Harvard and Stanford have great programs as well, but now when you go outside of the top couple of schools, it becomes really important to pinpoint, am I going to schools that really specialize in the schools and the areas that I'm interested in? Do they have leading faculty in these fields? Then do you want the school's recruiting to be geared towards a particular industry and function? Are you looking for financial industry, financial services recruiting, or consumer product goods recruiting? If you're looking to get into consumer product goods, many of the schools in the Midwest have great relationships with General Mills and Procter & Gamble. So you may want to seriously consider adding those schools to your list. What about location? This is one of the things that I feel like students sometimes don't really take sufficiently into account, but you're going to live in this place for about 2 years, and the people that are drawn to different locations are different types of students and they're different types of individuals. So do you prefer an urban campus in a big city where maybe there isn't quite as much of a sense of community, but there's lots of external outlets for culture and sports and entertainment? Or maybe a campus in a suburban town? Or do you want to really, really bond with your classmates, and so you prefer to be on a rural campus like at Tuck or at Darden so that you can really, really build those solid relationships that will be so important for the rest of your career? Do you want a large dedicated campus like HBS, or maybe a building within a larger university campus like NYU Stern? So you really need to think about these issues as well. And then cost. How much do you have in savings and how much can you afford to take out in loans? Another thing we work with our students on is how likely is it that you'll earn merit-based financial aid. We had a student with just a 3.1 GPA last year and a 700 on the GMAT who was admitted to Wharton with substantial tens of thousands of dollars in merit-based aid. And so, it's very possible to get merit-based aid even from the very top schools, even if your numbers are not ideal, and that is something you absolutely need to take into account. How much savings do you have? Will you get merit-based loans? That can be a really valuable reason to work with an admissions counselor. How much can you afford to take out in loans? After business school, are you planning to go into a profitable corporate job or maybe nonprofit work or the public sector? That also impacts how important it may be to reduce the cost of your education. Okay. Once you have selected your schools, then we have to begin to work on the essays. And you want to keep track of what you have to write for each school and when all of them are due. And it's so important, even if 2 schools have exactly the same question, which is actually not that often the case. Usually the questions are a little different. But even if 2 schools have the exact same question, you should not be submitting exactly the same answer. We would never allow that with our applicants here at Stratus Prep because we know that to be successful, you must customize, okay, to each individual school. You have to understand their community. You have to understand what their admissions committee is looking for. You have to have those inside insights that really make you competitive and tell. You have to sell to Booth what Booth is looking to purchase, and you have to sell to Stern what Stern is looking for, and you have to sell to HBS what HBS is looking for. Now, you're never going to lie Okay, absolutely not, and we're going to talk about that later. But what examples you choose, and how you really make sure that you place emphasis in certain areas of your experience and interests should vary from school to school. We need to customize. Then you may want to follow Stratus Prep's 5-step methodology for acing the application essays. So first, before you start writing, it is essential to become introspective. Okay? This is the strategy that I'm talking about. You first have to figure out, what's my core personality? What achievements do I want to highlight? What strengths do I have? What are my career goals, and why are they important, and how will they change the world for the better? Then you want to craft your personal story. So what's your chronological history? Why do you need an MBA? Why do you need it now? What are the key themes that you really want to share with the admissions committee, and that you want the admissions committee to read and really value? Then you should outline the essays. And as I said, we need to customize to each school, and we need to provide concrete examples. Then you want to prep your recommenders. Think about the context. Think about suggested content. Think about how you approach the recommender. And then it's time to sit down and write. And when you sit down and write, it's so important to write in your true and authentic voice. When we work with candidates, we are so respectful of your voice and your authenticity. Yes, we're going to make sure that you have the very best essays you could ever write. But it's also important that we be sure that your inner voice always shines through. We don't write essays for folks. We don't rewrite essays for folks. It is absolutely critical to us that the school knows that this is your work, but it's your very best work, because that is not only what's ethical, but it's what's going to work to get you into the school of your choice. Okay. So that's planning for essays. You want to make sure that you have a schedule for yourself. You want to be doing, we do at least 4 drafts with every essay with every applicant that we work with. You want to make sure that you have lots of time to write and to rewrite and to get feedback. When you work with Stratus Prep, we always have 2 admissions counselors who are working with you at all times, including myself. I work with everyone who comes through Stratus Prep. And that's because we know that you have to have a lot of different vantage points and a diverse set of views on each essay if you want to make sure that it really is the very best and that it will resonate with every member of the admissions committee. Okay, finally, it's time to review your resume to see if you have any gaps that you could fill in the next few months. So number 1, optimizing your resume does not mean lying. Business schools have the right to verify anything you put in any part of your application, and they often do. They often use outside companies like Kroll to confirm your employment information, your academic information, your extracurricular information. So make sure to keep everything in your resume and the rest of your application absolutely accurate. Next, volunteer work. Admissions committees expect applicants to have given back meaningfully to their committees. Because if you haven't given back meaningfully to your community that you're in now, it's unlikely that you'll give back meaningfully to their community. So they want to make sure that you are not only a great professional and an intelligent applicant who's been academically successful, but that you also give back to the communities of which you are a part. And that needs to be done in part through volunteer work or extracurricular work or work with community organizations. And it's not just a matter of volunteering. You can't just volunteer for a week at a soup kitchen and hope for the best. You need to head a strategically significant project, because volunteer work should be another chance for you to highlight your management experience, your leadership experience, your capabilities. This is absolutely essential for your resume. It's absolutely essential to incorporate into your applications. And now is the time to close this gap. You still have time before round 1 to lead a meaningful project with a community organization. And if you're having trouble, this is something that where an admissions counselor like my colleagues and I at Stratus Prep might really be helpful, because we often work with students who aren't sure, how do I get involved in my community in a way that works with my job? And we'll counsel you on that. We'll tell you what you need to be doing, how you can do it most effectively. Next, you need to attain leadership positions. You need to be a leader not only in your professional life and your academic life, but also in your personal and extracurricular life. So any groups or committees or associations that you're involved with, seek out leadership positions. You don't have to be the president, but what about being the treasurer or the vice president? What about heading up a new initiative? Maybe they don't have any formal leadership positions available, but you could head up a particular event or initiative. And try not to do something that's too related to fundraising. Let's try to do something that really shows operational understanding. It's just another way to strengthen your admissions portfolio. Okay, so then I wanted to share with you some case studies to really indicate how important getting the package right can be and how you can get into great schools even if you're a little bit worried about your numbers. So Alex went to a liberal arts school, a small but well-known liberal arts school, had about a 3.7 GPA, a 670 on the GMAT, had 4 years in finance. I should tell you the names here have been changed to protect the identity of the innocent. So 4 years in finance, and with our help, he was able to be admitted to Harvard and Columbia. So, Harvard has an average GMAT of, approximately 720, but many students, including individuals who are in finance, get in with lower GMATs than that if they have an overall compelling package. His essays were absolutely, moving. You read them and you couldn't help but want to work and study alongside Alex. And I should mention, he did not have some crazy, incredible personal history. He had a sort of very typical middle-class American childhood, but we were able to work with him to find team examples and to find leadership examples from his personal, professional, and academic experiences to really make him a compelling applicant that got both Harvard and Columbia tremendously excited. Next, Victor. Victor came to us. He was one of our Indian clients, and Stratus Prep has clients all over the world. So we have clients throughout Asia, Europe, the Middle East, South America, Australia, New Zealand. So, wherever you're from, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help. Just today I was speaking with some of our clients in Russia. And so Victor came to us from India, and he was admitted to HBS as well. He had a 3.0 from a GPA when converted from an Indian university. It was a good Indian university, but not one of the top 2 or 3. He had a 670 on the GMAT. He was a former consultant and currently an entrepreneur. And again, by working with him to shape his application, to make sure that his recommenders were putting his best foot forward, we were able to help Victor into the school of his choice, which was HBS. And then Daniela, she graduated from an Ivy League college with a very high GPA, which is very attractive to Harvard and Stanford. She also had an interview at Stanford and likely would have been admitted, but when she got into Harvard, she dropped out of the Stanford process. She had a 680, but she had very little work experience, less than 2 years in social entrepreneurship. But she was admitted to Harvard and likely would have been admitted to Stanford as well. So don't be scared if you only have 2 or 3 years of work experience. And remember that we measure work experience by the time you are admitted to the school. So she only had about, a little over a year, about 14 months when we were working together with her. And then Sarah with a small liberal arts college with a 3.7 and only a 600. One of our lowest GMAT applicants ever to get into Harvard. She had 3 years in sales and trading, so finance, which is often difficult for Harvard these days, but was admitted with a low GMAT there. So, don't be fearful. We've had folks that were admitted to Wharton with just a 3.1. We've had folks admitted to Stanford under 700. So you can get into these top schools. We had someone with a 2.7 who went to Michigan. We've had people under 3.0 who were admitted with scholarships to top 10 schools if the rest of the application and the work experience was compelling. Okay, so I wanted to share this because, obviously there are a lot of admissions firms out there, and a lot of them are wonderful and partners with Beat the GMAT, but I do think it makes a real difference which firm you decide to work with. And so this was a testimonial that we received last year from Jennifer. She had posted this in a number of places, but wanted to share it with me as well. And so she said, I worked with Stratus Prep, and I had a really positive experience. They are professional, responsive, and know the schools, top schools inside and out. I should mention that all of our counselors are full-time. So a lot of firms out there, they don't use only full-time counselors. All of our counselors are full-time, so you can rest assured that they're going to be responsive. They're only working with a very, very small number of clients each, and so they will have the time to reach out to you whenever you need them. Jennifer said, it's a relatively small company that seems to have grown a lot through word of mouth. That's how I heard about them. I felt like since they were smaller, they offered more personalized attention and customization than what I saw other friends receive from the bigger counseling firms, which seemed more like an assembly line. I'm headed to HBS this fall and have no doubt that I would not have gotten in without their help. A number of my friends and colleagues have also used Stratus. Not everyone has gotten into HBS, but they have all been admitted to very top schools and feel like Stratus went above and beyond to help them craft the best possible application. So as you're making this decision of whether or not to work with a counselor and which counselor to work with, I'd love to have a conversation with you so that we can really understand if you would be a good fit to be our next success story here at Stratus Prep. So this will be my last slide, and then I'm excited to open it up to questions and to hear what's on all of your minds. So in short, my summary for today: recognize the difficulty of getting in this year. Be prepared by budgeting enough time. Remember, we've got to, potentially still take the GMAT and GRE. We've got to develop our admission strategy. We've got to contact recommenders. We've got to finish our school selection and start on essays. So there is, and then we have to decide if we want to use an admissions counselor. So there is so much to be done over the next weeks and months that make sure that you're budgeting enough time. And working with an admissions counseling firm like Stratus Prep really can save you a lot of time. And then decide if you're going to use an admissions counselor as soon as possible. The way Stratus Prep works is you pay the same amount whether you sign up today or you sign up a month from now. So you might as well retain us as soon as you're sure that you'd like to apply this year, whether it's round 1 or round 2. We're working with people towards both rounds at this point. And as soon as you decide that you're ready to go and that we're the right firm for you, definitely sign up, because you're going to get even more value out of the admissions counseling if we have more time to go back and forth with you on everything from the strategy to the outlines to the essays. I should explain also a little bit about the two counselor structure that we have here, which I believe is really unique to our firm. So when you work with us, you're going to work with one of our MBA admissions counselors, and all of our MBA admissions counselors do have top 5 MBAs. And they also have years of admissions experience, as I said before. And that admissions counselor is going to be your partner in the process. And they're only working with like 4 or 5 or 6 other clients throughout the whole season, and this is their main source of employment. And so they're going to be working with you every day, day in and day out, partnering with you. There is no cap on the number of hours that they can support you. And so you're going to be working with them on everything from your strategy to your outline to your essays to your recommendations to your resume to your short answers to the interviews, financial aid, wait lists if necessary. And then I'm going to be personally involved with your application, and I will serve as an external evaluator at each and every step along the way. So I will bring my nearly decade of experience to bear to help you. And so we're going to talk about what's going on in the strategy level, and I'm going to look at your strategy slides and say, does this make sense? Does this need to be tweaked? And then we're going to look with you at outlines, and I'm going to look at your final content drafts and make comments. I'm going to look with you at interviews and do mock interviews with you. So you'll always have an external evaluator as well as a partner in the process, and I'm always available over phone or email. If you do sign up for participating in this webinar, we're happy to offer you an additional $100 off your purchase in addition to the regular 10% Beat the GMAT discount for any of our GMAT tutoring or MBA admissions counseling products. Just mention this webinar to get the extra $100 off when signing up online. And if you'd like, I do free consultations if you are interested in working with us, if you're interested in finding out more about how we might work together, what might the value proposition be of retaining Stratus Prep. I would be more than happy to do a free consultation with you. And to set that up, you can just give us a call. The number, if you're outside of the U.S., obviously 001, and then the area code 212-307-1788, or you can email us to set up a consultation, and we'll get back to you just as quickly as we can at consult@stratusprep.com. So now I want to invite Eric back in to field some questions from the audience, so that in the last 15 minutes here we can hopefully address a lot of important and pending questions that you have.
Thank you so much, Shawn, and thank you for this great presentation. For those of you who may have joined us a little bit late, we're speaking with Shawn O'Connor, who's the founder and president of Stratus Prep, as well as an HBS and HLS alum. And he's just walked us through a step-by-step timeline to help you strategize your application for this fall. So for the remaining 15 minutes, we're going to take your questions. On this GoToWebinar platform that we're on, there is an area, a little chat box, where you can submit your own question, and our team is standing by to review your question, and hopefully we'll be able to address it in the time remaining. So Shawn, first question is coming from Ryan. Ryan is asking, when writing your admissions essays, what are some methods of telling your story without sounding like you're bragging?
Yeah, so what I advise our clients at Stratus Prep is it's about showing, not telling. If you're telling me, it's going to come off as very arrogant, right? So you're telling me, I was nominated to be the best person in the class, I won this award, I won that award, I did this, I did that. But if you show how you achieved your successes, and you do that through anecdotal form, that is going to be so much more powerful to the reader, as well as to come off much more sincerely and not as bragging. But this is also a place where I honestly believe that you do need to get external advice from real experts, because you do need to put your best foot forward, and you can't be worried about, that, if I discuss these successes, then they might think I'm arrogant. You have to find a way to craft the language to make sure that it is something that is putting your best foot forward, but at the same time doing so in a sincere, authentic, and humble way. And so, as we're doing line edits and as we're making comments, suggesting maybe you could change this word, or, maybe we could insert another paragraph here that discusses this. When we're making those suggestions, a lot of that is to make sure that we retain the strength of the example, but we don't allow you to submit anything that could in any way be perceived as bragging or arrogant.
Great. I see a couple of questions coming in from some entrepreneurs here. This question is, how do you choose recommenders if you own your own business, or if you're part of a family business and your boss is your dad?
Yeah, absolutely. So we worked successfully with a number of entrepreneurs and actually a number of family business employees in this last cycle, including a couple who are going to Harvard. You do have to think creatively about who the references can be. So it can be people that you might have done strategic partnerships or joint ventures with. It can be clients of the firm that could speak to that. That's been something that's been very, very successful. It can be someone else with whom maybe you have a dotted line relationship rather than a strict direct report relationship with, but who is outside of the family. And when we work with family business employees, we don't try to hide the fact that it's a family business, because the school is going to be able to figure that out. And so we embrace that and talk about how that will bring a unique perspective to the MBA admissions class. But it's a little bit different. Entrepreneurs, it's anyone you've done joint ventures with, partnerships with, anyone that you have had as a client. For peer recommendations, you could use other founders or co-founders or other folks that are in the firm with you right now. If you're applying to a school like HBS that gives 3 recommendations, sometimes it can be useful to have someone talk about your management style who actually works under you in the organization. And then for family businesses, as I said, it can also be external clients or JV partners or other folks, but it could also be someone outside of the family who is in a senior management role.
Okay, well, Shawn, here's another question. This one is sort of a paraphrase from several people, and I believe it's with regard to a comment you had made toward the end of your presentation. So you made a comment about recognize the difficulty of getting in this year. And the general question is, is there something special about this year? Why is this season going to be particularly difficult? And will it be less difficult even next year if we wait?
Okay. Yeah, I think that that's a great question. And I actually anticipate that this year will be on par with last year, or perhaps just a tad bit easier, but it's still going to be very difficult. Because a lot of times people just look, oh, is this year a little easier than last year, or is last year a little harder than the year before? But what we need to look at is the overall trend. And during the crisis of 2007 and 2008, the number of applicants to business schools skyrocketed because people wanted to take refuge from the crisis in graduate school. And the number of people applying and taking the GMAT continues to hold steady at those high levels. So whether it's up 5% next year or down 5% this year, we remain at a very elevated level of applications. So that's something to be cognizant of. Another thing to be aware of is that this year, and in speaking to our contacts at schools, it's definitely what they're anticipating. With the GMAT change that occurred in June, many people who either had previously taken the GMAT and want to make sure that that they can apply and not be prejudiced for having the old format, as well as people who were prepping earlier this year and took the GMAT and now have suddenly decided that they want to apply to school, that is another sort of catalyst for an increase in the number of applications. So whether it's slightly up or slightly down from last year was quite competitive, and we expect this year to be quite competitive as well. So, there's a couple of causes there, sort of the general employment instability that continues, as well as the unique intricacies around the GMAT and the change earlier this year in June.
Yeah, Shawn, this sort of reminds me of when folks try to do market timing with their investments, right? At the end of the day, I think for many of our applicants who are listening today, you can't really predict the market so much in the context of, when you're ready to apply, you're ready to apply.
Absolutely. And one thing I always counsel applicants on is sometimes applicants say, maybe if I wait and next year's better. I say, well, if next year's better, it may actually be okay to be a reapplicant next year.
Mm-hmm.
What we've actually found, do not be scared if you don't get in to reapply to those schools. We actually have a higher success rate amongst reapplicants, people who previously applied, usually not with our help, and then are reapplying this year to the same schools. And this is true at Harvard, Stanford, Wharton. Reapplicants who make a compelling case the second time around, especially those who were very close the first time. Maybe they didn't quite have enough work experience. Maybe the interview didn't quite go well enough. Maybe they didn't quite have the extracurricular leadership that's required. But if they address those deficiencies and they came up with a much better package the second time around, they tend to be really successful. So if you're on sort of the border this year about whether or not you're sort of on the bubble, should I apply this year or not? It may be worth, don't apply to your safety schools this year, but maybe you should apply to your stretches and your targets, because if you don't get in, you can always reapply. You can't reapply 2, 3, 4 times, but you can reapply once, and you will still be taken very seriously and can actually be a more compelling applicant. Because if you're coming back to Harvard and you're a competitive applicant at Harvard, Harvard knows you could have gone to Columbia, or you could have gone to Michigan, or you could have gone to Duke or NYU. If you're really competitive at Harvard, you could have gotten into many other top 10 schools. So you must be really determined. And there is a certain respect for that determination.
Very cool. So we're speaking with Shawn O'Connor, who is the founder and president of Stratus Prep. We have a couple more minutes to take questions. So for those of you who are in the audience listening and you have a question, now's a great time to send it into that chat window. Our team is going to stand by and look for your questions. Next question, Shawn, is coming from Julio. So Julio is asking, what is the least amount of time you recommend before signing up for a consulting service? In other words, when is the prime time to engage with a consultant for round 1 or even round 2?
Okay. Ideally, we like to have at least 2 months to work with you. So if you're considering round 1, you really should be making a decision on if you're going to use a counselor and which counselor is the best fit for you in the next week to 2 weeks, because obviously HBS starts us off on September 24th, and then we proceed through the rest of the year with the other schools coming a little bit later, beginning of October and then middle of October. So if you want to apply in round 1, we'll work with you anytime. We really don't like to work with less than a month's notice, just because we don't feel that we can add enough value in that time, and we don't want you to submit anything that is not your absolute best possible work. So basically, we'd love to have 2 months. So that would mean, end of July, at the latest beginning of August, to work with us for round 1. And then obviously round 2 is in January, so the ideal time to sign up there is anywhere between now and September. I can tell you we already have numerous people who have signed up to work with us in round 2, who are already hard at work because they recognize that they pay the same fee no matter how long they have us on retainer, and by working with us sooner, they're able to just gain more from our expertise, use us to help them optimize their resume and improve their profile in the meantime, and then really have the time to very methodically come up with the very best application strategy and then execution possible.
Great. Shawn, we got another question for you. It's from Satish. Satish is asking, what do you think about one-year programs like INSEAD? Or what about part-time MBA programs? Any thoughts in terms of those different program types when you're considering fit for your applicants?
Absolutely. So if you want to work globally, I think that INSEAD is a great school to consider. However, some of our applicants, once they've gone to school, have found that with the one-year programs, they wish that they had had more time to explore different careers, like through an internship program. So I think if you're going to be going back to your same firm or your same industry and you want to work globally, INSEAD is top, and should be very, very carefully considered and really one of your absolute #1 schools. But if you want to be a career transition candidate, if you're looking to get into a different career, don't necessarily take the short way out and say, wow, at INSEAD I'll be all done in a year, because it may be that that's not enough time for you to best position yourself for that career transition. I think that part-time programs are a wonderful option for working professionals who really enjoy the work that they're doing. or it could be somebody who, due to life circumstances, like a new mother or something, wants to do a part-time program just to, spread out the costs over a longer period of time. I strongly prefer part-time programs to executive programs because when you do an executive program, many schools require that you disclose that you have an EMBA or an executive MBA. And so it can be better to do a part-time program. The thing is just to make sure that you understand what you will and will not get from a part-time program. So with a one-year program, you will still get all of that incredible bonding and those relationships with all of your fellow classmates. And some part-time programs, like Stern, which really stands out, are really great at fostering that even in a part-time program. But not every part-time program is adept at fostering those relationships. And sometimes folks are just going to school, but they're not really building the relationships with their classmates, which is so much of the value from an MBA. So I want to make sure that you're choosing schools that really have part-time programs that emphasize not only academic formation, but also culture building, and also that your job is going to give you the support you need to be successful in that part-time program. Because if your job is not going to allow you to take the weekends or the evenings that you need to complete the part-time program, then that can be quite problematic. But for the right applicant, it's definitely a wonderful fit.
And Shawn, I think this next question is going to be the last one since we're basically at the end of the hour. But for folks who are listening in, just wanted to remind you that Shawn on his slide right here has an email address, consult@stratusprep.com. If we couldn't reach your question this evening, the Stratus Prep team will be standing by for these kinds of free consultations if that's something you'd like to follow up with. And also on the Beat the GMAT community, we have a forum called Ask Stratus Prep, which is the official chat area, the discussion forum area for the Stratus Prep team, and they'll stand by there also to take your questions. So this last question for you, Shawn, this one's sort of closer to my heart since I think I fit this category now, which is what's considered an older client? And if you are an older client, what sort of things should I be thinking about in the admissions process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think anyone who's approximately 5 to 7 or 8 years out of undergrad would be considered a slightly more experienced or older candidate. And I think that you need to really recognize that you're going to have a slightly tougher sell to the top schools. But it's not impossible. And if you're thinking about working with an admissions counseling firm, I'm happy to share with you some stories and anecdotes of folks that we've worked with who are older applicants. Make sure that whatever admissions counseling firm you go with, they have expertise in this field, because you cannot just apply in the same way that a younger applicant would apply. So you have to be even more clear about why you need an MBA right now, why just continuing along your current trajectory or developing skills through professional development or other programs is not going to be sufficient. Why do you absolutely need an MBA right now? And you also have to be wary of, you don't want to pivot too far away from your current career, because if you have 5 to 8 years of experience in a field and you're saying you want to completely do a career change, the school may rightly be very nervous about your ability to land a job and be happy in a relatively low-level job in a new industry. So you may want to try to look for a career goal that is a little bit closer to your current position. Those are a couple of things I can give as initial tips, but this is something where I really need to get to know your own experiences and where you are and why you want to go to school, so that then my team and I can really work with you to craft the very best possible application, given the fact that you will be evaluated as an older applicant.
All right, and with that, Shawn, I think we're going to conclude today. So we've been speaking with Shawn O'Connor, the founder and president of Stratus Prep, as well as an HBS alum, and he's walked us through his 5 actions to take now before applying this fall. Shawn, thank you so much for spending your evening with us and providing this advice to our community.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Eric. It's been my pleasure.
Great. And one last reminder to the folks who are in the audience today, the Stratus Prep team has put together a very, very special offer for folks who have attended today. So you can see that on the screen. If you sign up, you can get an extra $100 off your purchase in addition to the regular 10% Beat the GMAT discount for their GMAT prep and MBA admission services. That is an incredibly generous offer. Thank you, Shawn, and thank you to your team for offering that. And of course, if you'd like to speak with Shawn and his team, They provided their contact information on the screen, consult@stratusprep.com. So a big thank you again to the Stratus Prep folks and Shawn for spending their evening with us. And also big thank you to you guys too. I think it's a really a testament to your preparation and hopefully your success that you're starting the top of the admission season with this webinar. And hopefully you'll take this advice and be successful at the end of the journey. Thanks so much, guys, and we hope to see you in future events. All the best.